Hi Al, how are you doing? Well, I have really had a busy week, and I thought I'd bring out all my props. Uh, I don't know if you've ever met the Skull. He's known far and wide as the Skull, and of course, this is my microphone. Uh, Hello, testing 1 2 3. The problem is it's not hooked up. It's just I'm into drama. Okay, I thought I prepared for this, but I'm just getting tired of waiting. So I'm going to do this off the cuff, and I have some notes here. And I didn't mean to scare you by saying I was doing my homework. I was more or less trying to cover my own butt and make sure that I knew where I was coming from. So I'm going to go down a list of things that you commented on first that I think I have a little knowledge of. Uh, you mentioned you were a hermit. Well, I've never met a hermit. And me and my wife are kind of homebodies. We do go out and associate with other people and church activities and stuff like that. But we're homebodies. We don't always have to go out and hang with people. And George Thorogood. Oh, yes, 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 yes. I like George a lot. And you mentioned you haven't read the Bible much. And it's a book that you said you've acquired some wisdom out of. And there is wisdom. I agree with you in all books. There's a lot of wisdom in probably all forms of belief systems. Uh, and the old famous one, Confucius or says or something. Uh, well, I have a book I would recommend to you in the Bible. It's very short. I think it's just 5 chapters. It's 2 or 3 pages. It's the book of James. It's one of my favorite books. My commentary says it's the how-to book, and it's got a lot of wisdom in there. Uh, so I told you about Philippians 4:6, which is about the peace of God that I had during my cancer, uh, which was really miraculous to me because doctors freaked me out, uh, and I had it. I had peace. Uh, and you said you'd raise me with Psalm 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. Yeah, I like that. And I need to be still more often than I am because I tend to blabber on a lot. And, when you talk a lot, William Tyndale mentioned something once. I forget exactly what he said, but it was something about, I think I'll remain silent and not let people know how dumb I am or something like that. Well, I'm afraid I expose myself all the time because I talk a lot about things I don't know nothing about, but I have interest in. And in that verse, be still, know that I'm God, it was a reference to uh, uh, the nations uh, and their anxiety they were having. And these nations were to be calm and know that God was there. That's what the reference was about. But I and you and whoever, I think being still is a good thing. Uh, and then you mentioned the verse before Abraham was, I am. I just love that. I just love that I am. Uh, it always struck me as an amazing 2 words that it would denote such confidence. Uh, I don't know. I can't even explain it really. Uh, but the reason behind that, the theological reason is Jesus had dwelt with God the Father from all eternity. There was never a time when he came into being or when he did not exist. Therefore, he said, before Abraham was, I am. So he's just trying to get the point across that he always was, and in relationship to God from eternity, from time beginning. Okay, well, I will see your rays, and I will go all in with John 3:16, and I'm not going to mention it. You'll have to do your homework. Okay, now we're entering into a stage of my comment that my knowledge base is very limited. I did some research, and I went into so many rabbit holes, I was getting a headache. Literally, I was getting a headache. Just one thing led to another. And in the title, I used the word, I believe it's pronounced locus of control. That's where I ended up. And it was about internal and external. I'll get into that in a moment. Let me see here. You said, in regards to spirituality, for you, it was a search for truth and meaning. And I can go along with that. I think that's good. And I'll give you my addition to your meaning when it comes to spirituality. And you mentioned about moving beyond verbal thought and nonverbal thought. And you said it was important to your particular process. And that's where you went into external and internal. And you said it presumes, and I might add, if anybody else is watching this, that I asked you the question, was it internal or external? So that's what this is all about in regards to spirituality. And you said it presumes that you know the difference, and you said you don't, and you added, this is serious. And then you went into the nature of perception and negative space. I believe you said you learned it from your wife in her musical teachings. And that there's space between the observer and the observed. Space between my thoughts and the creation of my thoughts. And you said logic dictates the opposite. No external, but all internal. And I wrote down here, this word popped into my mind. I wasn't even sure what it meant, dichotomy. And since I think you know my memory, I don't have one, but that word popped out, dichotomy. That sounds like a dichotomy. And I'm not sure that it is. It could be a false dichotomy. I don't know if it's really one. I don't think it is one. But could be confusing, as I think our conversation has been going. And I appreciate what you said. You said, my experience is convincing to me, but not to you. And you respect my position. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. And I respect your position. We all have those presuppositions, and hopefully truths, beliefs, and knowledge. And I'm outside on the porch now, but I'm going to put this through my editor. And I want to add a image, which was by a person by the name of Venn. It's called the Venn diagram. I think it's usually in regard to sets and numbers and stuff. But he did have one about truth, knowledge, and belief and how they intersect each other. So as I go off into Never Never Land, uh, I will say my spirituality would overlap with yours, seeking truth and meaning. But as I have sought truth and meaning, I believe that I have found it. And it's through, here's another prop I have, this Bible. It's 1876. You can see it's really tattered. Uh, Big thick Bible. Anyhow, uh, through a long process I won't get into, but I have found my truth. Do I question my truth? Yes, I do. Do I ever question, is there a God? Yes, I do. I do that very little anymore. I've been a Christian now. I started at the age of 43, and I questioned it quite regularly. I don't that much anymore because I am very confident in the evidence that I have. And I've said many times, I go by the preponderance of the evidence. It's not empirical. The Bible's not empirical. You can't prove God or disprove God. But the preponderance of the evidence that I have in the Bible and science leads me to believe what I do believe. When I had my doubts, I would always ask myself the question, okay, there's two basic options. We were created, or we came from nothing. Evolution and all that stuff. And I believe there is some form of evolution, but evolution doesn't explain the beginning before the Big Bang. And to me, on my early stages of Christianity, I always thought they're both unbelievable. They are both unbelievable. How could a deity exist forever? And how could we come from nothing? And you may know that about the second law of thermodynamics and the red shift and everything that they've proven scientifically that there was a beginning. For many hundreds of years they thought the universe always was. And with that thought, well, hey, who knows? Maybe something could come from nothing if there was something. But they have all their theories, multi-universe, the bounds, uh, string theory, all that stuff. And Larry Krauss wrote his book, How Something Could Come From Nothing. But nothing is nothing to me, to my simple mind. When science can show me that there was something, not a hypothesis, but there was something, I would be glad to look at that. So that's what I kept bouncing back and forth with on my early walk as a Christian. I'd bounce back and forth, and whenever I had doubt, I would go back to, okay, I only have one other choice. Strange thing is, one of these things are true. I don't do that much anymore. Now, about my title, I put that in just so it might stimulate somebody to click on it. I never heard of it. The Locus of Control. I did. There's a questionnaire on the internet, 13 questions that will tell you how you score. And I took the test, and the score is 0 to 13, and a look score indicates that you are more internal, and I scored a 2, so I must be very internal. And internal, the results for internal, you are more likely to take responsibility for your actions, and there's 4 points to that. You tend to be less influenced by the opinions of other people, often do better at tasks when they are allowed to work at my own pace, and internal people usually have a strong self-efficacy, and they tend to work hard to achieve the things they want. I think that kind of right on with me. And where it says tend to be less influenced by opinions of other people, I guess that's good if they're just giving you opinions. You know, if they're giving you facts, uh, I think it would be a poor judgment not to evaluate facts. Uh, okay, now on to perception. This gets so deep. I shouldn't even be here. I don't have the right to be here. But I love it. It's really very interesting. Uh, I guess there are three components of perception, according to Alan Sachs and Gary Johns. The perceiver, the person who becomes aware about something and comes to a final understanding, there are three factors that influence his or her perceptions. Experience, motivational state, and finally, emotional state. And I don't know why I'm telling you this. You probably already know it. And I'm not trying to teach you anything. I'm more or less talking out loud, letting you see how I think and how I look at things and do things. If you're interested, you know, you may not even be interested. But I just found all this stuff really interesting. And then in perception, you have something called the target. This is the person who is being perceived or judged. Ambiguity or lack of information about a target leads to a greater need for interpretation and addition. And I think that's a big thing when it comes to judging or perceiving not only a person but information. If you don't have a complete comprehension of what you're trying to understand or comprehend to put into your worldview or your knowledge base or whatever you want to call it, there's going to be ambiguity. And the bad thing is, for me, is interpretation and addition. So I guess what I do sometimes could be considered dangerous because, as you mentioned about cherry picking, I cherry pick. But when I cherry pick, I try to evaluate the bulk of the information that I can with the time that I have, so that when I cherry pick, it's not just totally picking something that's going to coincide with my view, but that it has some legitimate understanding. Okay, now I feel like I'm trying to tell you something. I really hope you don't take it that way. This is just the rabbit hole I fell in, so I'm sharing it with you. Okay, the terms belief and knowledge, okay, they're used differently in philosophy, and this is about epistemology and the study of knowledge, the study of knowledge and all that. And this is what leads into my graph. A false belief is not considered to be knowledge, even if it is sincere. As I'm sure some people view Christians, that just because we believe in it and are sincere, sincerity doesn't equal truth. So, and their example here is a sincere believer in a flat earth theory does not know that the earth is flat. Okay, and then I'm going to pop this graph up here on the screen when I edit this. The Venn diagram. explains how belief, knowledge, and truth are overlapping. You have belief on the outside, truth on the other side, and in the middle is knowledge. Now, I've tried to get information on that graph, and my interpretation of it is probably not correct, because in the middle there's knowledge. I don't understand why belief is out there. I mean, unless that knowledge would be considered our personal knowledge, or is knowledge truth? I don't think knowledge is truth, or it wouldn't be separated like it is in that graph. Okay, he says truth to my mind is pure facticity. I looked that word up. This means it's fact. I've never seen that word like that. That is how reality is in itself, or to put the matter in another way, the objective reality as it stands from an absolute perspective. Truth discloses itself to all of us, but it is always tentative, ambiguous, and incomplete. In other words, pure truth is beyond the ken, K-E-N, I don't even know what that means, of fallible creatures, kin, like kinfolk, I don't know. Fallible creatures such as ourselves, and the best we can hope for is a perspective, contingent, or practical view of truth. Truth is the world as it is, unbiased, uncontaminated, uncorrupted, and it is through the organs of the mind that we come to know it, however fragmented that may be. A belief is a simple cognitive understanding about the world. It might be a feeling, an unarticulated sense of things, a proposition or a disposition about oneself or about the state of the world. Okay, and of course they're breaking down these three circles. We had the example of truth, that was about belief, and the next was knowledge. Knowledge is the transformation of information, data, and experience into concrete concepts in the mind. These concepts can be true or false, and this is where knowledge becomes a metaphysical conviction more than anything. What is that all about? Here's a comment he made. As we all know from science, even though we know that the Earth revolves around the sun, there still remains a possibility of a time where the Earth will no longer revolve around the sun, or at least not in the way we think we know that it does. The point being that knowledge is not absolute, final, and complete, meaning that we have a finite perspective and should accept an absolute limit of what is and is not knowable. We should accept an absolute limit. And then here's something I just threw in at the end. Certainty is perfect knowledge that has total security from error, or the mental state of being without doubt. Certainty. You know, I've heard truth, beliefs, understanding, empirical, all these things. And now I see that word certainty as perfect knowledge that has total security from error. I have just went on and on. And I don't think I've answered anything. I guess we're just kind of talking, having a conversation back and forth. Hey, it's been a pleasure. You seem like a very kind-hearted person. Uh, Here is, I want to show you this Bible. Look how big and heavy it is. It's got solid brass brackets holding it together. It's really a neat Bible. I wanted to find the title page. There's the title page, 1847 or 1879. This thing is very, very heavy. As you can see, it's so thick, and it's in relief. Okay, I gotta go. This is 26 minutes. This is crazy. Nobody will ever watch this.